Hello and welcome. Wanted to welcome everyone to our June 2021 Camera Club of Richmond meeting. My name is Karen Davis and I'm the publications director for the club. We're glad to have everybody here tonight. We've got a really special presentation from a new friend to the Camera Club of Richmond, and we'll introduce him in a little bit. He's got a great presentation to show us some of his photos from his travels. But we will start off tonight with a few little pieces of information and some announcements from our fearless leader, our president, Bob Scammerhorn. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob now, and I think he's got a few things that he wants to share with all the members. So Bob, take it away.
Thanks, Karen. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June meeting of the Camera Club of Richmond. Glad you're all here. I've heard great things about our upcoming program for this evening, Big Cats and Little Cats with Jeff Parker, and I'm looking forward to that. Just so there's some awareness with the hard work that the board is putting in to ready the club for a virtual hybrid meeting. As you know, since we met last, the world has opened up a bit more than we were, I guess, at least I was expecting it to, which is great. We're looking probably close to August to being in person. We will be under the guidelines of the church where our meeting is held at the end of the day, which I did just get an email from them, and they said they are still under healthy church, is what they call it, situation there. So we will monitor that as we go forward, and present, the appropriate attire as we go forward with that at some point. So the board's been working on that. We're also working with the church to install some hardwiring so we can better broadcast to our online community. We appreciate those zooming in from out of town, whether you're local or from out of town, and appreciate you guys coming in. And one of the other things too that we're trying to finalize discussion on the end of year competition rules. I'm going to be sending out a conversation string to the rest of the board so we can kind of wrap up some ideas that we discussed at the last board meeting about things that we can do to be more inclusive, to have the awards more equal, merited on the quality of the picture itself, not necessarily so much quantity based, but on merit, something a little closer that some of the other photography organizations use that is a proven method. And so we're going to kind of take the best of what the Camera Club of Richmond does, take some of the best of what they do, and in an effort to make sure that there is there has been discussion where certain members tend to win all the awards in their category and things like that, and so the new rules are being done in an effort to make a good level playing field for everybody, and to be more inclusive to all skill levels as well. So we'll be hammering out the final details of that very soon. Is there anything else any other board members have? And Ann Fulcher, do you have anything you want to comment on with your liaison position?
I think everything has really been put on the website. However, there are ongoing events, and if you will give me 1 second, I will tell you when the next one is. It is on June 15th at 7 p.m. and it is Pixel This with the VPPA. And I think you can just go to their website, VPPA, and figure out the the way in which you register for that event. It's free and it's open to everyone. You do not have to be a member of the VPPA to participate. It's great. We usually have about 10 to 20 individuals. And for the most part, you just ask questions. There may be computer related questions, composition. It's just great to have a discourse with pro photographers and amateurs alike. So it's a great opportunity.
Excellent. Thanks, Ann.
You bet.
Are there any CCR board members that have anything they want to share, Karen?
One really quick thing. First of all, a big thank you to Anita Storino, who has been handling all of our Facebook posts over the last 6 months, really. So what we've done is we've been sharing all of the winners from our end of year competition from last year, and we have now exhausted our supply of fabulous photos. So she and I were talking about it, and we were hoping that you can start to provide some of your other photos that may have won awards in different competitions, or maybe if you've been published. I don't know if you've been following Facebook, but Anne, who just spoke, she's had some awards pop up and has had some photos published. Joe Ring has had some things published, and I think just saw another where they've been published. Ed Tepper had a photo win in another competition. But those are the kinds of things that we'd like to get from you guys so that we can put them out on our Facebook page for folks to see. And Anita, I noticed she unmuted, so she may have something to add to that.
Tell us about your award, Anita.
Oh, I'm so excited. I have an international award.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Vienna Awards.
Well, I mean, I was kind of sliding in. I wasn't planning on talking about that, but I applied to the Siena, Italy photo awards, creative, and got it commended. This is a whole new ranking for me. There was a winner, a runner-up, 3 highly commended, and 8 commended. And it looks like they have an award that looks like the Academy Awards in October in Siena. Maybe I'll go. I don't know. I was as shocked as anybody in the world that a photo got in. So yay. Thank you, Bob, for asking.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's terrific.
Thank you. Look, tell you what, everybody just enter stuff. I did. I hadn't been entering for a long time, but I love Siena. Thought it was a great excuse to be able to go. And so everybody just needs to enter. But anyway, on the Facebook stuff, we really want it. Please be sure to watermark your photos. We need that.
Yes.
Anita, how did you find out about the competition?
Inside Photo Contest.
Okay.
.com, because that's a .com, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have listings of all kinds of photography contests on there. So, all right, excellent. Well, congratulations, Anita. Are there any other board members that have anything that they want to share while the membership is present?
Hey, just to remind everybody, July, we have a exhibit at the Montpelier Arts Center. There should be emails going out. Everyone that has put in their request to have photos, we are going to be able to take all their photos and exhibit them for them. So be aware of that and start gearing for it, because I believe we're looking at July 14th or the 17th. I forgot which one of those dates it, but we're looking to have that as an install date. Jay's not online right now, so I need to verify the date. We're checking with the Montpelier people, but we should be set. So you should be getting ready now. If you've entered and said that you're willing to put 1 or 2 photos in, start getting them ready, because we'll be putting them up soon.
Very good. Thanks, Bob. Yeah, that and appreciate you guys with the exhibits, director and all, getting all those shows lined up and stuff too. There's several other ones listed in the newsletter that are going to be coming forth as well. Also, a reminder that the July meeting is evaluation, and is that just open? Where's Where's Michael Orr? Is that just regular evaluation or is there a assigned subject on July? Does anyone know? There
I'd
it
have
is.
to look at the calendar. I don't know right off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know it is. Yeah, and that will be in the next newsletter.
It's a signed subject. I think it's looking up, looking down, and Anthony is the evaluator again.
Okay.
That is correct.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Carolyn. All right. So that's something to keep in mind over the next few weeks as we prepare for that. Well, I think without further ado, we'll have Mr. Bob Pappas introduce our speaker.
Well, I'm honored to introduce Jeff Parker to our club. Jeff is going to do a great speech on lions, tigers, and jaguars, big cats. Jeff has been involved in animals and enjoying their environments for years, and he's been photography in all the different locations around the world. He's been noted in some journals. He's also been in magazines, Audubon Society, American Profile, Texas Journal, and I'm sure we're going to see some very exciting pictures of cats. And I will turn it over to Jeff now, and he can do a little conversation as to some of the programs that he's got going, and then we can go into his presentation. Thank you, Jeff.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me. So I am going to talk, let me see here. I'm going to talk tonight about photographing cats in the wild. I didn't start out, as that was my goal, but it just kind of happened that way. Cats have always been famously elusive in the United States. We have bobcats pretty much everywhere, but you hardly ever see them. They're not easily seen. So to be able to photograph all these cats has really been an amazing opportunity. This opening image here it's not the greatest photograph, but it's the first jaguar and the first big cat that I ever photographed in the wild. So it's special to me. This is Bianca down in Brazil in the Pantanal. So I'm going to start off with the first wildcat species I ever photographed was a bobcat in Yellowstone. My wife and I went to Yellowstone in the winter at Christmas time, and oh gosh, it must have been 2008, I think, maybe even 2007. And we just happened to find this bobcat along the Madison River. Now I think people photograph them pretty much in the wintertime in that same area. But at the time I didn't know anything about it. We just kind of stumbled across it. And that was the first wildcat that I photographed. Didn't plan for it. It just kind of happened. And that's been the way it is with bobcats. There is a place, Point Reyes in California, where people have had good luck going there for bobcats and have good success. But generally, I've just been lucky to have opportunities to come across them when I'm in the field. I was in a photography contest they have along the Texas coast every other year. It's called Wildlife in Focus, where they pair photographers with landowners. And all of your images in the contest have to come from that piece of property during a certain time frame. It's usually like March through June. And I did this contest 3 times. I think it really helped me grow as a wildlife photographer. And so there's very many categories that you enter your images in. And one of them is wild cats. And pretty much the only wild cat you're going to get is bobcat. And all the winning images I'd seen pretty much were bobcats drinking. In South Texas, water is a precious commodity, and it's the easiest way to get something like this is to set up on a water hole and hope they come in for a drink. So I was really determined in this particular year that I was going to get a bobcat shot that was not at a water hole. So I spent a lot of time in the field scouting, and I found an area where I was consistently seeing tracks and scat, and set up a blind and spent many, many, many afternoons there, and was rewarded with this shot, which ended up, I think it was 2nd or 3rd place in the bobcat category.
Hey, Jeff, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. We're not seeing your slides.
Oh, you're not?
No, so try that again. I couldn't tell if you were still doing a little intro there.
No, I'm going along. It's
yeah.
I thought I hit share screen.
Well, let's try
Try
it
again.
again. Yeah.
Is that better?
Something's happening. Oh, there we go.
Cool.
No, I was starting the presentation. So here we go. Let's try this again. There we go. So this is the one I was talking about, the jaguar at the beginning. And this was the bobcat in Yellowstone. So we only missed 2 shots. This is the one I was just talking about in South Texas during the contest that ended up placing. So this particular shot, my wife and I published a book in 2016 about nature photography venues in Texas. And while doing trips for the book and getting images, I was down in South Texas photographing a particular bird that we were going to feature in this state park. And this bobcat just happened to cross the path behind me, and I picked up my whole 600 millimeter Wimberley head tripod, the whole everything, 26 pounds, turned around and got 2 frames, which ended up being the cover of our book. So that was pretty interesting to be hand holding my whole rig, and it ended up being a book cover. And finally, with bobcats, in fact, I just got home from my annual South Texas bird photography tour. And one year we had a bobcat that did come to the blind drinking water, as we typically have in South Texas. So everybody that was in the group got great shots. This cat was totally like not concerned with our presence whatsoever. She came up and drank. This is uncropped with a 600 millimeter lens. I had too much lens. I'm set up for little birds, and this cat comes in. So you can see there, I was barely able to get her feet and her ears in with my lens. Couldn't get the whole body. But she gave us a great show. Sat out there for about 10 minutes, groomed, and got everybody really good looks. Always good to see a cat in the wild. So this book by Alan Rabinowitz, I read, gosh, in the early 90s, probably close to 30 years ago. And really piqued my interest in jaguars and tropical America. But I never really thought I would ever see one. Alan was studying them in Belize for, I believe he was there on site for 3 years. And I think he saw 2 in 3 years that were not in traps, that he just happened to see while he was in the field. So, you can go to the Amazon and things and they're there, but you're probably never going to see a jaguar. So I didn't really have a lot of hope that I would ever see one. And then in the early 2000s, it was an area in Brazil where they were starting to see them regularly, and people were starting to go with the purpose of seeing them. So by the time, I think it was 2015 when I went the first time, it was pretty much a sure thing that if you went to this area, you were going to see jaguars. Luckily enough, there's signs to tell you where to find the jaguar when you get down there. Kidding, of course. So I went down there in 2015, and sure enough, man, we had phenomenal luck. I've gone back. I don't think I went back every year in the beginning, but now I'm going back every year, and we see so many cats. The first year I went in 2015, if we saw a jaguar, we stayed on it as long as possible because you might not see another one the rest of the day. Now, I don't know if there's necessarily more jaguars. I think they're just more used to people. We typically see 4 or 5 every time we go out. We go out twice a day. We go out for like 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon. Each time we go out, we typically see multiple jaguars. This was just one that was stalking some prey along the riverbank. So this jaguar had killed a capybara. You can see it right there in the water. A capybara, I'll show you a picture of a young one here in a minute, is the world's largest rodent and one of the main prey species for the jaguars in the Pantanal. So this cat was trying to drag this capybara, which probably weighed 80 to 100 pounds, up this steep bank, and he was having a hard time, so he stopped here, catch his breath. And here he is again. Now you can see the prey behind him there. He did eventually make it up the bank with his dinner, but he had a hard time. He had to work for it. So this is a capybara. These are babies. The babies are kind of cute. The adults, not so much. But this is the world's largest rodent. They weigh about 100 pounds for a full-grown male. And one of the main things that the jaguars eat in the Pantanal. So here's a jaguar stalking coming out of the forest. So we go during the dry season. The Pantanal is the world's largest wetland. We go during the dry season when the water has all receded down to the rivers, and all the prey is along, pretty much in the river or along the river bank. So that brings the jaguars to the river bank to hunt and gives us the opportunity to see them. This is a dominant male. Look at that face. You're not going to see this in a zoo or a game farm. This is real life. And I actually photographed the same cat 2 years later, and he looked just the same. So he didn't like heal. But from what I'm told, he was dominant, and despite appearances, he actually won the fight, or wins the fights, plural. But he's a battle-scarred old dude, man. We spent a lot of time watching the cats sleep, as most cats are wont to do. They like to lay up in the shade, take it easy during the day, yawn every now and then, sleepy time. More, different cat yawning. This is actually a yawn, so it looks like a ferocious snarl or some kind of thing like that, but it's actually, he's just yawning. Just the way he's got his nose wrinkled up makes it look like something it's really not. This cat, this image I put in just to show kind of how their camouflage works. You know, if you're just scanning across with your eyes, you might not even pick it up. That spotted coat really works well to camouflage, and that's why they have it. Another one that was stalking along the riverbank. I have yet to see him actually catch anything. I've seen him try a few times, but never had one that was successful. This cat put on a great show for us. She rolled on her back in the sand, sat up and roared. It was really fun to watch her. We watched her for about 45 minutes, stalking capybara, rolling on her back, roaring. Really a fun cat to watch. Here she is stalking some capybara along the beach. You can see the sand on her back. And rolling some more. She was really into rolling on her back. And then after the capybara got away, she looked a little bit dejected. She missed out on dinner. This is a young male who was jumping into the water after a caiman. Caiman are the other main prey species for the jaguars in the Pantanal. And they're very similar to our alligators. They're not as big. A full-grown, like large caiman is about 6 feet long. They eat primarily fish. And they estimate there are about 10 million caiman in the Pantanal. So there's lots of them for the jaguars to eat. And here he is just still going after it, but the caiman got away. Same with this. This is a different, you can just see the caiman's tail there. This is a different jaguar, different time. And again, the caiman got away. And that's a good look at a caiman, sunning on the bank. Pretty impressive looking in the photograph, but they're not really that big. This one's probably 4 feet maybe. I wouldn't want to like try to kiss him, but he's not going to kill you. This is a fun encounter. So we had just pulled up. It was the first afternoon with my group. I think it's in 2018. We had just pulled up. There was a cat sleeping in the shade, several boats around. It wasn't a very good sighting. We were just about to leave, and I looked over my shoulder, and this cat had come down to drink right behind us. So our boat was in the best position to get this shot. You don't often see jaguars in trees. Leopards in Africa will take their prey up into a tree. They have to deal with hyenas and lions and things like that. Jaguars are pretty much the top predator wherever they occur. They don't have to worry about anything else taking away their prey. So they don't typically climb trees, but this one, I think there was actually a couple of siblings that got into the habit of it. And you would see them in trees fairly frequently. And I've even heard from the guides that every now and then they'll see them drop out of a tree down trying to catch a caiman from the air, but I haven't witnessed that. But we did see him hanging out, and you can see she's totally relaxed, completely not concerned with our presence whatsoever. All the jaguar photographs are from a boat. So we're in the water on a boat, photographing them up on a bank. Don't usually see more than one. These are siblings that haven't quite left mom yet. They're probably a year old. They're about on the cusp of going off on their own, but they're still hanging out together. Another shot showing the camouflage. Our boat drivers are amazing. We can be cruising down the river 25, 30 miles per hour, and they'll spot something like this and pull over to the side. It's like, how did you even see that? That's incredible. This is another image that looks more dramatic than it really is, you know, with a 600mm lens and cropped a little bit. Looks like he's really coming in on us, but he was just walking along the bank. So started with the book, ended with the book. Alan Rabinowitz was the founder of Panthera, which is an organization dedicated to big cat conservation. And in actually, I think this came out in 2020. I was privileged to have several of my images in this book put out by Panthera about the jaguars in the northern Pantanal. So Alan has passed. I never got to meet him, and he was gone already by the time this book came out. But it's kind of cool that what piqued my interest, I ended up being able to contribute to the organization that he founded. So there's another cat we see in the Pantanal. This is a cat that actually occurs in Texas in very small numbers. We have about 80 in far south Texas, just north of the Rio Grande, and that's the ocelot. The first time we actually saw these, I had gotten an email from the lodge owner that they were getting ocelots. I didn't quite believe we were going to see them. I was a little bit skeptical. But sure enough, man, we were out there the first night and this cat just slowly materialized out of the darkness. It was really pretty magical. And now they've got a pretty good setup. You don't see the ocelots every night, but they come out most nights. I would say 4 out of 5 nights an ocelot puts an appearance in. These guys are nocturnal. You only see them at night. That first year they had a pretty dim light. It was just lit with like a car battery and a single light bulb. Since then, we've gotten better lighting. You'll see as the pictures go on to get newer pictures, the light gets better. It's always fun to see these cats. Pretty much the only way you're going to see them, unless you're super lucky in the wild, is on a situation like this. Love that. So you can see the light has gotten way better. They actually ran electricity down there to the area where they set up for the ocelots, and we've got electric lights now. A beautiful little spotted cat. So in the Pantanal, every night after dinner, a naturalist gives a talk. And that first year I was there in 2015, one of the talks was about pumas, which we call mountain lions or cougars or panthers. They go by so many different names in the United States, but it's all the same species. They're found from British Columbia all the way down to the very tip of South America. And again, these are famously elusive. You can spend your whole life in the Western US in mountain lion territory and never see one. They see you, but you're probably not going to see them. So again, I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, you can really actually see these cats in the wild? So the first time I went down, it was just Mario, my wife, and I. We didn't take a group because, again, I wasn't really sure we're actually going to see them. And the area where we go is Patagonia and the Torres del Paine National Park region, which is already famous with photographers for landscapes. But the cats were really something. When we saw this cat the first time, I literally had tears running down my face. I didn't think this was possible in the wild. So this is a mother with, her name is Sarmiento, with these are about 6-month-old kittens. These cats are not as distinctive, obviously, as the jaguars. You can't tell just by looking at them most of the time which one, individuals, but the guides see them every day and they know the territory they're in and all that. So they pretty much know the cats individually. So Sarmiento has this territory along the edge of the river, or the lake rather, with these rock formations that are formed by the mineral deposits from the lake. So she stashes her kittens there during the day while she goes out to hunt. And then in the afternoon, they get up and start to stretch and get ready to go out for the evening. The kittens come out to play. And let me tell you, this is a magical experience. Unlike the other things where we're either in a boat or in a vehicle, we're actually on foot here with these pumas, which is just so amazing to be out there walking in the wilderness with these animals. This is one of the kittens jumping from rock to rock. This is Sarmiento. She's such a model. She was actually my cover girl. I had an article, an outdoor photographer, that featured her. What a beautiful, beautiful cat. So there she is on the cover of the April 18, 2018 Outdoor Photographer magazine. This is a different cat. I think this is Hermanita. And Hermanita is one of the first ones they started watching. They've been watching some of these cats, Hermanita included, since they were kittens. So they're used to people being around. They totally ignore the people, don't even look at us typically. And they just go on about their business as if we weren't there. And this is a guanaco, the main prey species of the Pantanal, of the pumas in Patagonia. Lots of guanacos in this area. So this is really a conservation win. It is illegal to kill pumas in Chile, but it still happens. Outside of the national park, it's mostly sheep ranches. The sheep ranchers feel that guanacos compete with their sheep for food, so they kill the guanacos. There's nothing left for the pumas to eat except sheep, so they kill sheep. Ranchers kill the pumas for killing their sheep. So this particular landowner we have an agreement with, and he has gotten so successful with ecotourism, with people coming to see the pumas, he's actually taken the sheep off the property. I think it's like 10,000 acres. Lots of guanacos now, lots of pumas. We estimate there's about 20 individual pumas on this property. We see probably 8 of those on a regular basis. And it's just it's great all the way around for the landowner, for the animals, and for us to be able to see them. When I first went, I got there 2 weeks after the national park had instituted a new rule where you cannot go off trail following pumas. Luckily, we already had this agreement with a private landowner. So we're next door to the national park and we can go wherever we want following pumas. The guanacos are photogenic in their own right. They're a very attractive animal, but they're really puma chow. So Hermanita uses this fence between the national park and the private land to her advantage. She patrols up and down this fence. You can see this young guanaco didn't quite make it over on the first try. If Hermanita had been here, that young guanaco would be dinner. So she patrols this fence line and uses this obstacle to her advantage. As you can see, she has no trouble clearing the fence herself. Up and over. Another overly dramatic image. This cat, this is Hermanita again. She's up on a hill walking down. She's not really coming after us. It just kind of looks that way. You can tell when they're stalking. For the most part, these cats are just walking by. They don't even look at us. Here she is laying down, just taking in her view of the world. They're camouflage. They don't have the spots like the jaguar does, but the coloring blends in so well with this grass. This cat was only about 20 feet away. The guide kept telling me, he was whispering, "She's right there. She's right there." And I'm looking out, and I was like, "I don't see it. I don't see it." And finally I looked closer. I'm like, whoa, she really is right there. She was super close. Never saw it. A couple of siblings here grooming each other in the rain. Light rain there. It rains a lot there. So we don't try to get too close to the pumas, but a lot of times they come to us. So the way it works is, so we're not walking all over creation, getting tired. We have trackers that go out with radios, and when they find a cat, they'll radio back their location. We can drive as close as possible and then walk to where the cat is. It's usually averages maybe a half-mile walk. So I was hanging out at the vehicle with my group, waiting for the call from the tracker, and this cat came to us. We're all frantically getting our stuff out of the truck and getting set up. You can see backpacks there on the ground. And this young puma walked right up to the vehicle, started smelling it, was smelling our packs. He's like really interested. This was a young male, just like teenagers everywhere. They kind of push the boundaries and can get in trouble. Here he is again, just checking us out. And he wasn't stalking us, but he was getting a little too close. He was just really curious. So shortly after I took this shot, I started to pick up some rocks and make myself large and scared him away because he was just a little bit too curious. Just like with the jaguars and all other big cats, we spend a lot of times watching the cat sleep. So this puma was up in a little cave up there in the rocks sleeping, and every now and then he would lift his head up like this and look around and then go back to sleep. So we're just staked out down below waiting for him to do something. Usually in the evening, they'll get up, stretch, and start to hunt. Well, it just so happened while we were watching this one, a guanaco came by below the ridge there. So he got up and started to stalk the guanaco. And we thought, this is it. We're going to see a kill. You can see it was all flat to the ground. He's got his ears flat. He's totally focused on this guanaco. He's about to make his play. You can see the cat up there, guanaco down here. But then I guess the guanaco didn't get close enough. I don't really know what happened, but the guanaco walked on by and he just sat up and watched it leave. He never made an attempt. So heart rate came back down. We didn't actually get to see a chase. But in 2019, I did. We were following this cat. She was stalking some guanacos, and this happened so fast. If you didn't already have her in the viewfinder and following her, you missed it. I think only about 3 of us actually got the chase. She took off like a rocket. You can see here all 4 legs up off the ground in full flight, chasing this guanaco. But the guanaco got away. I only have 2 shots there. There's a whole lot more to the sequence, but I didn't put them in the presentation. But the guanaco did get away. She didn't catch it. Another cat sleeping, lifted his head up, caught some nice light there. This is one of my favorite shots. This was actually a double page spread in one of the outdoor photographer wildlife specials they did a few years ago. I like being able to include the background. The environment where these cats live is so dramatic and beautiful. I love being able to include it. So anytime I have that opportunity, I always rack out. I carry a 100 or 400 with me along with my 600 so that I can try to get shots like this that include more of their environment. So we're not up in the mountains. We're down in the foothills down below. Wonderful background. We don't often get nice light in Patagonia. It's usually cloudy. So we got some nice golden light here at the end of the day that made a wonderful opportunity. This is Sarmiento again. She's up away from the lake, giving us a nice profile. And this is Hermanita in a later year. She had a little tear on her lip there. It made her look kind of fierce, but it was actually an injury. Didn't seem to bother her though. Whoops, I don't know why I had these out of order. So I'll come back to Hermanita again in a minute. This is a big male. We don't usually see males. Males have much larger territories that encompass several females' territories, so they don't tend to stay in any one area for very long. We typically see the females because they have a much smaller territory that they stick to. But we wanted to see this guy, big old bruiser. You can see he's doesn't look too happy with us being there. And it was a pretty tough hike to get to him, but we did get to see him. Got a couple shots. All right, back to Urbanita. I got those out of order for some reason. She was just feeding on a kill and just walked right past us. Never even looked my way. This is the guanaco kill she's feeding on. So you can see that little tear to her lip. Doesn't bother her. She was still able to get dinner, and she's well fed. Good hunter. This is what you do when there's no light and you have a cat and you want to get a shot. I really like this technique. You should use it more often, but it was super dark. I think I was at like ISO 3200 in like a 30th of a second. So I'm going to try to get the shot. And if you're able to pan at the same speed as your subject, and you can keep it acceptably sharp while getting this motion blur. I do this with the cranes in Bosque del Apache. I've done it with elk in Rocky Mountain National Park and race cars. It's really fun with cars. But it's a fun technique to try, and it was really the only resort we had, as dark as it was when we saw this particular cat. It was right by the road as we were driving out one morning. And that wraps up the puma part. So we do take a little bit of time to do some landscape photography. Once everybody's gotten plenty of puma shots, we'll take a morning and try to capture the beautiful landscape in this part of the world. We have any questions so far, or are we good? No? Okay.
I haven't seen any come in and chat yet, but
All right.
pictures are awesome.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we're enjoying it.
Good. So after having photographed the jaguars and the pumas, thought, well, we've got 2 of the big cats. We got to go to Africa and get some more. So my wife and I went to Kruger National Park, just the 2 of us, and spent 2 weeks there. It was wonderful. Really loved it. The first big cat that we saw was a lion. We saw quite a few lions. These guys were not shy at all. They're on a bridge here, actually. They're kind of blocking traffic, and they were mating. So if you know anything about lions, you see any of the documentaries, when they mate, it tends to be like every 20 minutes for 24 hours or something crazy like that. So in between, they're just taking a little nap here. And the lion walked right past our car, and they went up a little ways up the line of cars and laid back down. I couldn't really see what they were doing, but I could just kind of see the tail flipping. I knew they were up there, and I heard a noise like, psh, and the lioness jumped back. And I thought maybe the car up there had done something to try to scare her away. I didn't really know what happened. Well, it turns out she had just reached over and bit the tire and popped it. So I pulled up next to the car and asked him, "Do you want some help changing that tire?" And he said, "Yes." So this driver of this safari truck and I were helping him change his tire while the people in the truck watched the lions to make sure they weren't coming our way. I should have taken a picture of the tire, but that was like a 2-inch gash in the sidewall where she just casually nipped it. Another male lion hanging out while after mating. And this actually, in the act, you can see the female there. There's her snout and her eye and her ear. And then a big yawn afterwards, before they lay down and sleep some more. I have yet to get a really good shot of a leopard. I've seen leopards in Africa and India both. It seems like they're always in brush, or there's grass in the way, or there's always something in the way. This is the best I've been able to do so far. Mario and I are actually going back to Africa in a couple of weeks, so fingers crossed that I'll be able to improve on my leopard shot. So the 5th big cat I got was the cheetah. I wasn't really expecting to get a cheetah. Kruger National Park is not known for their cheetahs. We were waiting one afternoon. We were watching some baboons. Towards the end of the day, we only had about a half an hour left before we had to be back in camp. And a car pulled up beside me, rolled down his window and said, "The cheetah on a kill, 3 kilometers down on the left." So I said, "Thank you." We went down, and sure enough, found this cheetah. We were the only car there. And we were able to observe this cheetah for about 20 minutes before we had to book it back and get into the camp before closing time. So at this point, I've got 5 of the big cats. There's 2 left, the snow leopard and the tiger. Just like with Peter Matthewson's book, Jaguar, Alan Rabinowitz's book, Jaguar, Peter Matthewson's book, The Snow Leopard, it's probably my favorite book, definitely my favorite nonfiction book ever. I've read it several times. And snow leopards were famously elusive. In fact, in Peter's book, he was there for, I think, 3 months with George Schaller, the naturalist, and he never saw one. They live in really, really tough terrain, remote, tough terrain. And it was really pretty much impossible to ever see one in person. Most of the stuff that you see was camera traps. And then again, kind of like with the jaguars and the pumas, I started hearing about places where people were going and they were actually seeing snow leopards. So I decided, I think it was in 2018, we need to go and see if I can lay eyes on a snow leopard. So we went to India and went after snow leopards. So the lodge where we're staying for the snow leopards is at 13,000 feet. So for the first couple of days, we stayed in a city at 11,000 feet to try to get a little bit acclimated to the elevation. And we went to a Buddhist monastery. So this area is right on the border with Tibet, which is debated whether that's China or their own country. China thinks it's theirs and Tibet thinks that they're independent. So a lot of the people there in this area are Tibetan, and the culture is more like Tibet. With the Buddhism, and the features and the people look more like Tibetans than they do from India. So I've been able to travel a lot in Central and South America. This is really my first and only time to Asia, so it felt really exotic to me. This was like the most exotic place that I'd ever been. So this was pretty cool to be able to go to this monastery. And these young boys, this is the youngest monk. I think they say he was 8 years old. Their families give them up to join the monastery, and they become monks. It's hard to see the scale of this statue, but it was like, man, this thing was like 20 feet tall. It was enormous. This is inside the temple at the monastery, and colors are just amazing. And this was the courtyard there at the monastery. You can see the Himalaya there in the background. Now you may be thinking, okay, Jeff, this is supposed to be about cats. You're not showing us pictures of cats. Why is that? Well, with the snow leopards, I did see them. But like I said earlier, it's super tough terrain, really remote. That's me, another person on the trip took a shot of me. You can see this terrain is so harsh. I can't believe that the prey species can even live there, much less cats. But it was super, super tough photography. I don't know if you can see, there's a snow leopard right there. For viewing snow leopards through a scope, it was an okay trip. We actually saw 8 individual cats, but for photography, not so much. They were just way too far away. They were all about a half mile away. So even with a 600 millimeter lens, you know, and a 1.4 or 2x teleconverter and a crop factor camera and then cropping, they were just too far away. There was, even though it was cold, the air temperature was right around freezing during the day. There was heat shimmer. There was, you know, waves in the air at that distance. So you couldn't get a sharp shot. You can't crop really into it because it's not that sharp. The distance was just too much. But here you can see there's 2 laying on this ridge. So that's why I scouted this. I went by myself to see if it was worth taking groups, and decided that at this point, it's not. We're going to have to be able to get closer before I want to bring groups to photograph snow leopards. And there's actually 2 in this shot. One up here, one laying right there. And that's about the best I was able to do with the snow leopards. Just too far away. So after that, I'm in India. I've got to see tigers. That'll be my 7th big cat. So we went down into central India for I visited 3 of the tiger reserves. Mario joined me for that. And this Indian roller is helpfully pointing the direction where we need to go find the tigers. Luckily, the tigers were not as difficult as the snow leopards. They are considerably more difficult than the jaguar and the puma. We went out several times before we finally saw a tiger, but we did have luck. And I did take a group back last year before COVID shut the world down. In January, we went to India and had some good luck with the tigers. So this was the first tiger that I saw in the wild. This was a bit of a frustrating experience. This is on that scouting trip. There was 3 like 18-month-old cubs, which is what this is, in the grass out of sight. They were growling, and you know, the brush is thrashing around. We could hear all this commotion going on. And then they come out and they start running across this grassy field, and I'm wanting to get shots of them running through there. The driver is thinking we need to get in front of them. For whatever reason, he wants them crossing the road. So he's taken off, and I'm screaming at him to stop. And I'm trying to take pictures from the back of a moving Jeep of a running tiger. Actually, this part's not too bad. The head is not sharp. So that was pretty frustrating, but it is what it is. We did get this observation of a big male who had just killed an axis deer. This is not a fawn. Axis deer keep their spots their whole life, unlike our white-tailed deer in the US. And this cat was enormous. You can't even wrap your mind around how big it is unless you've seen one in person. Big, big male tiger. So we're in the back of little, they're like Suzuki Samurais, little Jeeps. And the tigers are habituated to them. And again, just like the jaguars with the boats and the pumas with us on foot, they just pretty much ignore, like we're not there. So this guy walked right past our little Jeep. So this is me standing in the back, and I'm 6'3", standing in the back of a Jeep. So my feet are probably already 2 feet off the ground. And you can see the scratch marks, how high up they are when they're doing this kind of behavior. These cats are, it's the world's largest cat. And it's just unbelievable how enormous they are. So this is a female, and she had just killed a sandbar, which is similar to our elk, very large deer. And she's carrying off to feed out of sight. Again, cats sleeping. Wait for them to do something, which is typically yawn and stretch, and they get up and start to hunt. But nice view of those pretty teeth there. So this is our final cat. Not a big cat, but really actually much more difficult than any of the others. This is called a jungle cat. This was in India. And it's a small cat. It's about the size of a house cat. And we just happened to see it as we were driving out. I actually saw one in 2020 as well, but didn't get a shot this good. It was just pretty much ran out of sight immediately as soon as we saw it. So that is my cats. Do we have any questions or anything we want to talk about?
Hey, Jeff, you used a 600 millimeter lens. Which model lens? Was it Sigma or Tamron or?
So I'm a Canon shooter. Pretty much all of these shots, there were some exceptions, but most of them were shot with a 600 millimeter f4. The Ocelot shots were actually done with either a 150 macro, believe it or not. I was using that because it's an f2.8, super low light, or with my 100 to 400. And a couple of the other shots, like the Puma with the mountains in the background, or the super close tiger, those were also shot with the 100 to 400. So I've got the 600 f4, keep the 100 to 400 on a second body in case the opportunity comes up to use it. But I would say 90% of the cat shots, maybe 95% of the cat shots are with the 600 f4.
Nice, very nice pictures. They were really cool.
Thanks. So I do a few things other than cats. This is my website, exploreandfocus.com. So the cats are awesome. The one coming up this year is sold out. Rocky Mountains sold out, but I do a few other things. The Bighorn Rut, I scouted that last year. That's really fun. Looking forward to going back there. Got a couple of spots left for Pumas next year. So if you're interested in any of these, you can check my website, exploreandfocus.com. I'm also on Facebook, Jeff Parker. If you want to hit me up, when I'm home, I post something pretty much every day. I'm also on Instagram, but I'm not as active as I am on Facebook. Anything else?
Yeah, Jeff, we have a question coming in from Frank. He wants to know, how do you pursue getting magazine covers?
Well, the cover was just icing on the cake. You never know if you're going to get that, but I had submitted an article, and they told me that they were considering one of my shots for the cover, and I just had my fingers crossed. I was actually in India on that scouting trip for the snow leopards and the tigers when they sent me the email that I did, in fact, get the cover. So that was a nice surprise.
Yeah, that was awesome. Or maybe back it up a step. How do you pursue any coverage at all in some of these publications?
Yeah, there's a lot of competition. Unfortunately, the print is getting smaller. Outdoor photography is getting smaller. You pretty much just pitch. You've got to have an art. So for me, on this case, the article was already written. I wrote it. So I'm providing the article and the photos, which is still not easy, but it's probably the easiest way to go. If all you have is images and you've got to rely on somebody else to write it, that's a little bit tougher. Mm-hmm. Seems like now there's more with e-magazines. There's one that I've contributed to quite a bit called Wildlife Photographic. It's not printed. It's strictly like on tablets, an e-magazine. I prefer to hold a printed page, but that's the way things are going. So there's a few others besides Wildlife Photographic that I've seen that you might pursue that, but you pretty much just got to find the editor have something interesting, pitch them, you know, see if they're interested in running your photos in your article.
Okay. Yeah, both Ron and Susan have said beautiful images. Susan liked the kitties. Cindy says wonderful presentation. So,
Thanks.
yeah. Carolyn is asking about your journey, your photographic journey of the big cats. What came before that? What led you into this aspect of your photography?
So yeah, I pretty much fell into that by accident. When I started, I'm mainly looking at birds. You know, birds are active during the day. Texas is a great birding destination. We have many really good birds here. And I was in the wildlife photography contest, Wildlife in Focus. Actually, like I said, I did that 3 times. And it really forces you to expand if you want to do well in the contest overall, because there's categories for macro, for different insects. You know, there's plants, birds, reptiles, wildlife. So I had to really open my horizons up and try different things. And then the second time I did it, when I really focused on trying to get the bobcat, that was the first time I really went after a cat. And I, you know, so it's still kind of, they weren't easy. And then I started learning about these other opportunities, which frankly, in the pumas and the jaguar are easy. And lions in Africa, if you go to the right spot, they are easy as well. So it's all about going to the right location. And it's the same thing with birds. I mean, you can go someplace that great blue herons are not used to people and you can't get within 100 yards of them. And then you go to Florida and you can walk right up to them. So it's all about going to the right location where the animals are used to people and common and just getting in there. But yeah, I didn't set out when I started with photography to be a cat photographer, but it just kind of fell into being something I was really fascinated by, to see these beautiful animals in the wild. And you know, you can go to a zoo, or you can go to a game farm, and you can, frankly, with a game farm, you can get better photos, but it's not the same. You're not in the environment. You're not supporting those animals in the wild. So just like the story I told in Chile with the rancher, the same thing with the jaguars in the Pantanal. The Pantanal is mostly privately owned, big cattle ranches, cattle, jaguar. The ranchers would kill the jaguars. Well, now there's so many people going down there to see the jaguars. They can make a lot more money off of us staying on their ranches and taking us out to see the animals. If they lose a cow every now and then, it's well worth it. So by going to these places and seeing these animals in their environment, not only do you get a richer experience, but you're contributing to them being able to live in the wild where they belong. Unfortunately, there's got to be an economic incentive for local people to keep these animals out there alive and not persecute them.
Right.
So
Yeah,
how long?
that's a great point.
How long have they been doing the tracking the pumas in at Torres del Paine? Because I remember a couple of years ago, the wildlife guy, as part of his presentation, it sounded like it was very difficult to get close to them.
So they've really been doing it. So I went in, I believe it was 2015 when I went, and they were just getting started. So it's been what, 6 years now, and we have good success. We don't. It's not as successful as the jaguars. We don't see one every time we go out, but it's rare for us to go a day without seeing a puma. So we'll typically see 2 to, well, more than that. I would say 3 to 5 individual cats on a tour. And typically we'll see a couple of those several times. So we'll have multiple sightings, but sometimes they're the same cat we saw yesterday or 2 days ago. But we have good luck, and it depends on, you know, who you go with and what they're doing. If you're there on a landscape tour and they're not focused on the cats, you're probably not going to see one. You know, we're employing trackers that's their job. They're out there every day. They know what to look for, where to look for them. In fact, there was one we were watching. There was a puma that was curled up right next to the road. I mean, like 3 feet from the pavement. And if we heard a car coming, we'd all turn our cameras and point to the mountains like we're taking a picture of the mountain. cars would drive right by. They never even saw this cat laying right next to the road. So you got to know what to look for and where to look, but they're there.
Hey, Jeff, it sounds like you don't use blinds too often. Most of the time you're out in the environment, out in the open.
Yeah, for the cats, definitely. The ocelot setup is kind of a blind. It's like bleachers, and it is baited. They put out little bits of chicken, and they have the lights. And so we've got chain link behind us and on the sides so that a jaguar can't sneak up on us in the dark. And the front's open. We can see the ocelots there in the light. Everything else is just in their environment. No blinds, just what we find. Now for the birds in South Texas that I just came home from, we do use blinds pretty much exclusively for that, for the birding.
So you said you're doing a Rocky Mountain trip, and earlier you said the mountain lions were hard to find in Rocky Mountains. So are they starting to track those too? Not
that I'm aware of. I'm doing that for the elk rut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then going back later on for the bighorn rut.
Hold on one second.
Another question?
Jeff, this is Karen again. A question about the competence level of the folks that you take on your tours. Do you have like ranked beginners all the way to professionals, or how do you prepare people for those trips?
Yes, we have the whole gamut. So the Puma tour is pretty physical. You've got to be in decent shape because we're walking. We're actually out there on foot tracking these cats. Everything else is pretty easy. We're doing the jaguars from boats. So if you're a beginner and you need a lot of assistance from me, that's awesome. That's why I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have any there's no classroom time. There's no set teaching, but I'm there to help in any way that I can. We have a break during the middle of the day. So we'll go out, we'll leave the boat at like 6:30 in the morning. We'll get back around 10:30 or 11, have a break until like 3 and we go back out again. So in that middle of the day, there's definitely opportunity to sit down, talk about any issues you're having. What can we do to fix, your shots are blurry or whatever. Definitely run the gamut.
Okay. Speaking as one who hardly ever leaves home without my laptop, do people bring their laptops or tablets or whatever so that they can transfer the pictures? How do they handle collecting probably thousands of pictures on one of your trips?
Yeah, a lot of people do that. They'll bring their laptop and a portable hard drive. And during that break, during the middle of the day or in the evening after we come in, they'll download. Personally, I keep everything on my memory cards and download when I get home. I don't want to mess with it while I'm in the field.
Okay.
But a lot of people do. For sure.
Right. Any other questions? Any would-be explorers, travelers out there that want to hear the inside scoop?
Jeff, are you doing any bird tours?
Yes, absolutely. Here's Ecuador. We're going in February of next year. That's all birds. I just was in Costa Rica in April, which is primarily birds. We've got, monkeys and a few other things, beautiful, colorful frogs, but that's mostly birds. I haven't abandoned my roots. I'm still doing bird photography. Started doing some landscape stuff, some night photography, out in Big Bend in Utah, things like that. So I'm still doing birds. You've got the cranes here, Bosque del Apache and the whooping cranes here in Texas. For sure.
I've got a great question from Paul. He wants to know, how do you prevent becoming dinner while shooting the cats?
For the most part, they completely ignore us. So we're not on the menu because they're taught by their mom when they're hunting, what to look for, what is prey. They've got a profile of what they're after. And that's not people. The only time I've ever had one, and he wasn't stalking us, he wasn't being aggressive. You can tell when they're stalking, you know, the ears go flat, they get low, and they're really laser focused. He was just super curious, was that one young male puma. And he was a teenager pushing the boundaries, trying to see what he could get away with. Other than that, I've never seen one take any interest in us whatsoever.
Well, mountain lions have been known to go after runners up in the Rockies.
It has happened, but it's super, super rare. I mean, you can't even count the millions of times that runners have gone past mountain lions and they never knew the mountain lion was there. So yeah, it's not impossible, but the chances of it are so minuscule. It's like, not
And
even
that's probably why people say, oh, well, you know, could be a problem here.
yeah. There's much, much more likely that you're going to be killed by a dog when you're out running. That, and I'm not joking. That happens 30, 40 times a year in the United States. I carry pepper spray when I run for people let their dogs run wild.
Back to another technology question. Ed wants to know if you keep a backup of your cards.
Personally, I don't. So if you're downloading and you've got 2 hard drives, that's the way to do it. You've got it on 2 different hard drives and back it up. I just leave it all in the card and worry about it when I get home. So if I lost my card or my card got corrupted, I'd be out of luck. But so far in 15 years, it's never happened.
And then another question about your tours. How many people do you normally take on a tour? Susan wanted to know.
Excellent question. It's typically either 6 or 8. So with the Pumas, I do 6 people. With the Jaguars, we do 8. Costa Rica, I do 6. So it kind of just depends on the destination and how we're transporting people, whether it's going to be 6 or 8.
Okay.
Jeff, does your tour include airfare, or is that a separate part of the tour?
No, I don't include airfare on any of them because you never know where people are coming from. In fact, I've got some people coming to Brazil with me in August from Kotzebue, Alaska. So I don't know what their airfare is, but they've got quite a bit of travel to get down to Brazil. And I've had people from overseas. So yeah, no, it doesn't include airfare. It starts when your plane touches ground, and everything's on the international tours. Everything is covered until we take you back to the airport at the end of the tour.
Seems like one of the biggest problems is getting your gear there via the airlines. And how do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, I'm struggling with that with my upcoming Africa trip. So I've got a Gura Gear backpack that holds my 600, my 100, 400, 2 bodies, and usually another lens and a few other various items. If they ever start weighing that, I'm in trouble. But it's small enough that it fits in the overhead. I just wear it on my back and act like it's really light. My tripod and Wimberley head and that sort of thing, it goes in my checked bag. So when I do Costa Rica, I bring all the gear to do a multiple flash setup with multiple flashes, tripods, triggers, all that. So I pretty much don't have any clothes. I've got my clothes fit in my little carry-on that's about this big, and I just wash them in the sink every night. You know, I've got quick dry material shirts and underwear and pants, and I just wash stuff in the sink and let it dry. Won't be quite that extreme for Africa because I'm not bringing all that extra gear, but the weight limits are not as generous as they are for flying in a commercial jet to South America.
Ever have any problems packing that valuable tripod equipment and stuff in your carry-on? I mean, your bag to go under?
Knock on wood, I have not. I did have a flash get broken. I didn't pack it well enough, and it's in transit. You know, they throw these things off the air plate, and it did smash the display on one of the flashes, but it still worked. You just couldn't read any of the information on it. Other than that, no, not knock on wood, 2 hands. Never had a problem.
Hey, Jeff, how do you go about tracking the guides for all the different locations? Did you find them on the internet or just go to the site and search around and
So that's a good question. For the stuff in India, so I'm a member of NAMPA, the North American Nature Photographers Association. And of course, they didn't do it this year because of COVID, but every other year they have a summit where they'll move it to different locations throughout the country. And I met an operator from India whose grandfather was actually instrumental in getting tigers protected in India and getting the first tiger reserve set up. So I went through him to do the snow leopards and the tiger reserves. He actually owned some of the lodges I stayed at for the tigers. For the jaguars and the pumas, I think I found them at Nampa also. It's been so long now, I don't remember. But yeah, once I've made the contacts, then I just stick with them. Africa, I just did on my own. Just went over there and rented a car and had a blast. Costa Rica, I do on my own. So Ecuador, I met a guy at Nampa who owns a lodge there. And so we stay at his lodge, and then he sets up a driver, takes us to other locations on different days to go photograph different birds. So it's good to network and meet these people at these different events. Hopefully we can get back to doing that again now.
awesome.
It does sound like things are starting to open up a little bit. And
Yeah.
you've scheduled some things. I know some of our members are starting to schedule events and shoots and those kinds of things. So it's starting to feel almost normal again.
Yeah, my wife and I got our vaccine back in March, so we're ready to go.
All right. Okay. Any other questions from our CCR members?
I just want to thank you, Jeff, again, too, for sharing your work with us, too. Beautiful, beautiful images there, too. I think my favorite's the ocelot. I don't know, something about those little cats has always been made them one of my favorites, too. Beautiful pictures of those. Really terrific.
Thank you. Yeah, there was actually a professional photographer on that trip the first time I did the ocelots. And like I said, I didn't tell people what we were after because I didn't really believe we were going to see them. And when that little cat slowly materialized out of the darkness, he started crying. He was just, couldn't believe it. It was
Eyes full
really
of water,
awesome.
couldn't take the picture.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm right there with him. I was the same way when I saw the pumas the first time.
Yeah,
So, Jeff, do you have a pet cat?
We do. His name is Parker. Parker.
Okay.
you're stuttering. No, just kidding.
That's great.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. I too am a nature guy, and I'm a NAMPA member as well, and love that organization. And also, if you're looking for insurance for your gear
Yes.
and do nature photography, they have a access portal to inland marine insurance, which if you sell any prints at all, you're considered a professional photographer, and your homeowner's insurance will not cover your camera gear because they do have access that comes with membership to that as well. That's another great advantage for doing that as well. They also have their own in-house contests and things like that as well. But I appreciate it. Just great. You made Bob Pappas, our programs guy, look like a genius. So we appreciate you sharing your stuff tonight. And
I do want to slip in one more question, because we have 2 youth members of our club, and one of our youth members is with us tonight, and she wants to know, this is from Morgan, do you have a favorite cat to photograph, so we can close out with Jeff's favorite?
Oh man, that's tough. It's really, really close, but I got to give it to the pumas. Being out there on foot in their environment, and it's just so magical. The jaguars are right up there with them, but I think the pumas probably have it.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, that sounds like it. Well, lots of thanks coming in from all of our members. We really appreciated all of your insights and your gorgeous photos. So thanks again. And I think we're going to say goodnight to everyone.
Thank you so much for having me.
All
Thanks,
right,
Jeff. Great job. Thank you.
Take
Thanks,
care. Good night, everyone. Check
Good
for
to
the
see you.
recording later.
Thanks, Jeff.
So where's your Camera Club shirt?
Awesome program. There you go.